Hello everyone, my name is Don, the movie reviewer, and today we are going to be talking about Solo, a Star Wars story. It is a Star Wars movie spin-off, and today we are going to be doing that with the help of my best friend, Sam.
I'm Sam. That sounds like it about covers it. I don't really have any credentials here. Just gonna talk about Star Wars.
Let's do the damn thing!
You're after something. Is it revenge? Money? Or is it something else?
Heard about a job. Big shot gangster putting together crew.
I'm a driver, and I'm a flyer. I waited a long time for a shot like this. What do you think? Well, what do you know? You might wanna buckle up, baby. Push it!
So glad we took this job!
I wouldn't call myself a super huge Star Wars fan. I don't remember the original trilogy. They were iconic when they came out. I saw The Force Awakens because now they're trying to revive everything. They're trying to bring Star Wars back since Disney bought them. Didn't really care for The Force Awakens. It's directed by J.J. Abrams. I didn't like it all that much. A lot of people say it rips off A New Hope. Don't like J.J. Abrams' movies all that much either. So overall, I mean, I watched The Force Awakens twice. First time I saw it, it was brand new, it was entertaining. When I watched the second time, I just got bored, so I don't like it. Then I saw The Last Jedi, which I remember we had a conversation. You enjoy it, I think it sucks. A majority of people who are hardcore Star Wars fans think it sucks.
They don't like it.
But there's a divide, it's like you love it or you hate it kind of thing, yeah.
It's great. It's like the third best Star Wars movie, something like that.
Okay.
I'd have to review my list to put them in order. But anyway, so that's your lead up, that's your background?
That's my background.
Your Star Wars experience?
That's my Star Wars experience. The prequels, I loved them when I was younger. Now they just give me a headache.
Yeah.
The third one is decent, there's death in that movie.
They get better as they go, right?
Yeah.
No, that pretty much aligns with my prequel experience. I saw them when I was young, so I enjoyed them because they're sort of, geared towards children and whatnot. But then, right, on rewatching, they're terrible. But just like you said, goes 1 and then 2, and then 3 is the best of the prequels. As far as original trilogy, I also remember watching them as a kid and as an adult, and mostly I think they're good, but not the greatest thing ever. I did not at all, or I guess I shouldn't say not at all, I did not too much care for Force Awakens. It was just A New Hope 2.0.
That's what a lot of people call it.
A new, bigger Death Star. I don't have any love for a bigger Death Star. It's imaginary, so who cares if it's bigger?
Right.
But I really enjoyed the Episode 8, The Last Jedi, because what I felt like it did was bring some nuance into the Star Wars. What prevents most of the Star Wars movies from being really good is they're just they're entertaining fantasy action movies, but it's just good versus evil. Evil wins, not a lot of nuance. Whereas with this Episode 8 here, right, you had all sorts of depth to the characters. You had, Luke rejecting the Jedi ways, and I always thought there was this sort of extremism to the Jedis that needed to be addressed. So I felt like it was an interesting, much more nuanced look at the Star Wars universe. So that's where I'm at going into this. Oh, and I thought Rogue One was just fine.
Rogue One was fantastic. I love Rogue One
I don't know about fantastic.
so much. It was great. I feel like since I hated Force Awakens so much, and I was disappointed by Last Jedi, Rogue One came out before Last Jedi, but I enjoyed Rogue One because it was different, it was dark, I actually cared about the characters. A lot of people say they don't remember the characters' names because they're not important, but I thought I was emotionally invested in the characters, I liked the story, I liked the music, the whole film is fantastic, and I like how it ties into A New Hope perfectly. The way Rogue One ends, you can watch
they
A New
jam
Hope
every
back to
character
back.
into their New Hope starting positions. That's true.
They do, exactly. And that's why I was excited for Solo, because I was like, oh, Rogue One spinoff, it was good, a lot of people
how does
had their
it
doubts.
fit in?
Yeah, and I was like, oh, Solo looks interesting, but Ron Howard, not a fan of his work. Da Vinci Code, they get worse and worse. Rush, I fell asleep.
No rush.
And what else? The Beautiful Mind, I think, has a great story, but the way it's executed is bad. I wasn't anticipating this because of Ron Howard. That kind of diminished my expectations, but I just went into this expecting, okay, like Rogue One, hopefully this will be good. Don't care about the main trilogy of episodes anymore after watching The Last Jedi. But I'll give Solo a shot, even though I feel like a lot of people were talking to your friend or your roommate about how people were already expecting to hate this movie before going in.
I don't know that I was expecting to hate it. Definitely came in with low expectations, though. Not hoping for very much out of spin-off Star Wars. But, like I said, Rogue One exceeded expectations.
Yeah, Rogue One exceeded expectations.
So I went into this with low expectations, but, prepared to be proven wrong.
Alright, so that is our history with the Star Wars franchise. And so we saw Solo. Let's get into it. Alright, so you have a young Han Solo here, played by the guy from Hail Caesar, which was a Coen Brothers movie.
Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple. Would that it were so simple.
His connections to other characters in the movie was pretty predictable. There was one scene where Han was first introduced to Chewie. It was a good relationship, but at the same time I felt that, okay, for someone who already knows the lore and who Han Solo is and who knows who Chewie is, when I saw that pit scene where, Han Solo gets captured, they throw him into the pit, they build it up, they build the moment of the reveal of the creature very well, because they're like, oh, he hasn't eaten in a long time, is what the soldiers say when they throw him in there, and then there's this anticipation to see who the monster is, and I knew it was coming, I knew it was Chewie, and they have their fight and they escape, and I remember you were talking about like how much you love Han Solo and Chewie together in this movie.
I thought that scene was a really effective part, and building that relationship really, for me, sets up the main theme of the whole movie. Because it's about Han and Chewie are captured, and they're in a situation where, they're supposed to be pitted against one another, but, they find a way to work together, especially the communication piece, right? The whole key to Han Solo escaping was his ability to make that connection with Chewie through language. And I think that's a really important part of that scene. I think it really sort of sets up Han's character arc well. We get introduced to him and we get the very much basic point that he is, a deserter of the military, someone who's ready to commit crimes and steal things, but that he also has a heart of gold.
He's crossing that fine line between, being a good guy, being the back of the anti-hero, but not necessarily. Exactly,
and that the question of his morality, is he a good person or a bad person, is a really central theme. It's a central theme throughout the whole movie, and it gets set up well in that scene because what I think it shows, so it's setting up the question of is he a good person? And that's sort of a fundamental question of the whole movie. And it sets it up within the context of him communicating and connecting with someone else and showing loyalty so that he can escape from a bad circumstance. Also within the context of, being a criminal and committing a crime. So I felt like that was really good, and then that whole story arc I felt like paid off really well. And my favorite my favorite scene in the whole movie where Han shoots Woody Harrelson first.
Yeah, that whole conversation.
It's just
shot first.
Yeah, right. It's this great payoff where you get, your answer to this question about Han's morality, right, is that, his redeeming qualities that make him not like a scoundrel or a bad guy, if you will, is that, he's loyal and he works well with other people, but ultimately he's still looking out for number one and he's not necessarily going to fight for a cause. So once he's in a circumstance where he is working together with other people to achieve some kind of selfish goal, he then, within that context, demonstrates very high degrees of loyalty and selflessness. He's willing to sacrifice himself for the group and work together in order to achieve some kind of ultimately selfish goal. Like, right, he really wants to get money and get back with the girl that he gets separated from in the very beginning. And that's his motive. And so he does display these amounts of like empathy and kindness towards others and caring about the group, but at the same time he's always looking out for number one and he's not afraid to shoot first.
Exactly.
And I felt like that was a really good way to bring the story full circle. So that was probably my favorite part of the movie, is that setting that relationship up and then having it come forward full circle in the end. Like we all know, Han shoots first.
I like that too.
Anyway, that was probably my favorite part. Oh yeah, so right in the beginning, they are stealing some magic juice, some blue fuel from a train, and it feels very much too fast and too furious.
It does. It reminds
me of
Fast and Furious 6. There was a sequence in that movie where they were performing. It involved a tank, if you know what I'm talking about, and it was very. It was elaborate, but it was goofy. I thought that sequence in Fast 6 was fun. In this, it has that element of fun. Visually, it's beautiful. I think we both agree on that. Mm-hmm. But just the way, the vibe of it, the feel of it, and the way the action sequence is executed, it just feels, it feels too fast, too furious, and it kind of took me out a little bit. I mean, it was fine, but then the action sequences I also felt went on way too long. They overstayed their welcome. It starts and you're like, okay, boom, this is what we expect. They get into whatever it is they're trying to steal, and then these other people come in, and then they're trying to stop them, and then they're trying to get the stuff, and then there's all this stuff happening, and it's just too much, and it goes on forever, and I'm just kind of out of it, and I'm like, all right.
I mean, what I thought about the action scenes were they all were, fine. It felt correct, done properly. The whole movie sort of felt maybe a little bit like paint by numbers in the sense that everything was done very much to the book. But what was good about that with the action scenes is, it wasn't cut to death or difficult to follow. You had sort of a sense of what was happening and good continuity. So they were sort of engaging, but pretty much generic. And the one at the beginning felt like very much Fast and Furious in space, not in space type of ripoff.
It did.
But yeah, mostly just generic action scenes, but a lot of action scenes I think are done really poorly, and these weren't necessarily done poorly.
Yeah, I could tell what was going on.
But when we were talking about the movie before we got started here, there were a couple that we just couldn't remember what happened.
Yeah,
we're like, a lot of the times we found ourselves going blah 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 action, and then something happened. So a little forgettable potentially with the action scenes there.
There was just one action scene in here that bothered me, where it felt very choppy, editing wise, and it also it goes back to what everyone always says about the stormtroopers in Star Wars. They always miss and they can't shoot and hit the target. But there was a sequence they were escaping, and Donald Glover, he's shooting, and he's not really. He doesn't seem like he's afraid for his life or anything. He's kind of having fun with it. He's just shooting, and they're missing, and they kind of the laser beam or the laser whatever thing flies past them, and he kind of flinches, he looks, and it's like, oh, it's no big deal. He continues to shoot, but then there's this one robot, I forgot her name, L3, who's very sassy in this movie. Is the only person who dies. And when she died, I didn't care, and then they tried to give some levity to her dying with Donald Glover being all sad about it. And then he gets shot in the shoulder. I'm like, okay, they hit him, but he gets shot in the shoulder. Then it's so choppy, and then they're shooting, and there's like a scene where he's
he
shooting
was
him.
definitely going to be dead if there was that much gunfire.
Yeah, he would have been obliterated.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah, that actually seemed
no
really
way
wild.
he's living. That whole sort of the whole Childish Gambino robot B plot, I did not care for very much at all. I thought the robot was an interesting character, and it was maybe potentially an interesting idea, having sort of like the enslavement of robots as a moral question of the film and maybe of the series overall. But I felt like it was just done in a really black and white and unnuanced way. Like her character was super one-dimensional, wasn't too interesting. I didn't understand what the basis of her relationship with Donald Glover was at all. They were just sort of together, and then she died. Yeah, and I wasn't very, moved by that at all. Exactly. I didn't invest in the character. And then another thing that sort of tied into the whole robot B plot is that, right, they use her brain to take a shortcut through the Kessel Run and do it in 12 parsecs.
Yeah, that's what he's always gloating about. 12 parsecs.
And this doesn't have anything to do with the movie. This is just a stupid point, but I need to make it. They clearly screwed up when they wrote the original Star Wars. Someone who was writing that movie used the wrong sci-fi mumbo-jumbo and talked about doing the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs. Now, whoever wrote that mumbo-jumbo clearly thought that parsec is an amount of time, right? You're able to do a run in a short period of time. As it turns out, parsec is a unit of distance, and so it doesn't really make sense to do the Kessel Run in a fixed amount of time. It seems like any kind of run or route or maneuver would require the same distance. So it's just a mistake in the originals. It doesn't matter. But then, all my super nerdy Star Wars friends will fill me in with this long story about how it's justified because the computer can find the shortest route through the, all these different, ways to go. And so it just felt like a lot of the movie was dedicated to fixing a plot hole mistake that wasn't important from the original trilogy. It is okay that you use the wrong units for the Kessel Run. You don't need to lie retroactively and make it about distance instead of time. You clearly thought it was a unit of time. That's all I have to say about Kessel Run. Doesn't really affect the quality of the movie. So just sort of generally about the whole plot. Right, they go to steal the blue fuel, they get attacked by a group of other criminals, marauders or something. Then they go to meet Paul Bentley, Scarface, Paul Bentley, the boss level of this particular video game.
He was cool, by the way. I like Paul Bentley.
He did.
He gave a good performance.
He gave a good performance. I would say that he has the typical villain problem of like not having any motivation.
He doesn't. He's the boss.
Or at least that I can't remember, right? He's just evil because he's evil, right?
Yeah, he's just evil because he's evil. But the way he played that character.
He did do a good job. He definitely did a good job. I don't think he was a great bad guy, but he did a good job playing it. Anyway, they meet him, and he sort of sets them all on their journey. And I felt like the writing was really bad, and it didn't have any nuance or flow to it. It felt like I was in the beginning of a game of Dungeons and Dragons. And I'm talking to the big boss guy, and he's like, here's your MacGuffin. You need to get this magic object and do this thing with it. That's your quest. Here's your love interest. Let me present you with this lady from the first scene, and while I'm at it, we'll set your character arc in motion. Are you a good guy? Are you a bad guy? Again, just sort of like lazy, a little just overly simplistic. There wasn't much nuance to it. It's like,
There's a
all
lot of
right,
simplicity to it.
we're gonna get the blue stuff, we're gonna get the girl, we're gonna kill the boss at the last level of the video game. I was ready for it.
It's predictable.
So the twists, of course, the twists.
Lots of twists at the end. Lots of twists.
All right, so let's see. How does this start? I got this trajectory of how many twists I think there was. They were
the fake out. Well, first it was,
okay. So they get the fuel. They're coming back to give it to Starface, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then twist. The evil marauders that stole that ruined their heist of the blue fuel in the beginning are actually rebel good guys out of nowhere. Whatever. And then. Ooh, twist, right, okay, so his love interest is Kira. Kira is his love interest. And it's like, ooh, somebody, you know, the jig is up. Scarface knows that Han is going to mess with him and try and give the fuel to the rebellion. And at first, you're like, ooh, it must have been Kira that did it. And then, twist! It was really Woody Harrelson.
I don't understand why Woody Harrelson is here. I think he's just thrown in here. Woody Harrelson is a fantastic actor.
Hey, he does a good job.
He does a good job. He plays his character, but his character in the movie makes no sense.
No sense at all. Twist! The Marauders are good guys. Twist! Kira ratted him out. No, double twist! It was actually Woody Harrelson. Twist! Han is sort of in on it, and you know, instead of the fake fuel that everybody thinks that he brought Scarface, it's the real stuff, and that ends up mattering for some reason, and then
Just to keep the story going. That's all it is. The twist, I thought the twists were pretty nice, but it's just like, okay, one after the other after the other. It's like, okay, we get it. They're trying to be unpredictable, but it's still, it's really poorly executed.
And then right at the end, right, in my mind, the final twist is that the love interest from beginning, the Kira, ends up becoming the new Kingpin, right? She takes over for Scarface
She kills Scarface.
and becomes the Godfather, which is another thing in the movie that I really like. So that was the other story element, in addition to sort of Han's little character arc and him shooting first as the end to that character arc. It was really brilliant. The other thing was, I think, that was good was his relationship with Kira. In the beginning, he views her as, right, sort of the classic structure to it in the beginning is that he's going to be the hero. He's like this conniving, evil, sort of, you know, willing to break the law, sketchy character, and he's going to, you know, save his damsel in distress and ride off into the sunset with his plunder, right? You know, classic pirate story. But then by the end of it, she has flipped the script on him. She is the one who sees through his ruse and is like, I know that you're the good guy. You know, like Wreck-It Ralph style. Just because you're a bad guy doesn't mean you're a bad guy. Anyway, right, she's the one who sees the good in him, and there's all this talk about, you know, like, who's changed? Has she changed? I've been changed. Like, you don't know him. You don't know what to expect of me. You don't know where I come from. You don't know what I'm capable of. Right, all this, like, which characters are capable of changing and which characters are not capable of changing. And here I think there's an interesting comparison between Kira and Han. So right in the beginning, Han thinks that he's the bad guy and she's the damsel in distress. You know, a good guy's type of character that needs to be rescued. And by the end of it, she certainly isn't in need of rescuing. In fact, you know, she doesn't even want to be with him. She'd rather run this criminal empire. So she's the one who's truly evil.
She knew what to expect of him because she knew he was a good guy. You know, he didn't think he really was.
Exactly, and she ends up being the one that's actually capable of change. She's really dynamic. Han Solo is really static. He doesn't change at all. And I think that's sort of integral to the larger message about his morality. Like he might be willing to, like gamble and, mess with Childish Gambino and do the clever card trick thing where he is cheating the cheater. Much like when he breaks out from the clearly evil prison in the beginning and when he pulls the double switch on Donald Glover in the end and wins the Millennium Falcon back, right? He's using his sort of conniving ways and his skills to overcome people who are more evil than him. But what's good about him is that he's always really loyal and always looks out for the group, even if it's within an overall to accomplish some kind of selfish goal. He still shows those consistent things.
Yeah, like there's.
So I think it's that is meaningful because he's the one that doesn't change, right? And it's this consistency that gives him his redeemable qualities and makes him not a true villain. And it's Kira's ability to be changed in the way that she has. The darkness that affected her life has gotten on the inside, and the darkness in Han's life might make him pessimistic. It might make him willing to commit crimes, but it never infects him into becoming a good person. He stays consistent. Anyway, that's what I thought was cool about that story arc of their relationship.
Donald Glover, Childish Gambino, he plays Lando Calrissian. He did a really good job. I liked his performance in here. Like we discussed about him with what's her name again? The sassy robot.
The robot's name is L3.
L3. Like we just touched on, I didn't really care about their relationship. It kind of reminded me of Rogue One with K2SO. K2SO had a sassy attitude. And in this one, it was kind of the same thing. And it was kind of funny, but then when she died, and then you got Donald Glover coming in there and he's crying over it, I feel like they just kind of glossed over it. I didn't feel the emotional weight of that. But Donald Glover gave a good performance as Lando Calrissian. He was very suave. He had his own unique personality, so I thought he did a good job with what he was delivering.
I think Donald Glover and Paul Bentley, the main villain, both stood out for being a little bit better than everybody else. But overall, as far as the acting is concerned, I didn't think anybody was fantastic. I didn't think anyone was bad either. I thought everyone did a good job. And I think that Donald Glover and Paul Bentley did a little bit better than the rest of the cast. But I think the rest of the cast did a solid job. Don't really have much to say about the acting. Right? I think a lot of the times, if the acting is good, you won't notice it. Because, right, ideally, people are just going to act naturally.
Usually.
And
if like getting sucked into it.
The best possible thing is to get sucked into it. That's really great. That's a good way to put it. Right, you get sucked into it. And I didn't get sucked into any of these characters. Like, I didn't relate to them super hard in that suck you in kind of way. But, they all seemed believable to me. Right, that's sort of a lower standard. Like, sometimes characters are believable, and that's sort of the minimum threshold. Like, are you buying it? Or is the acting not taking you out of the story? And then if it's really good acting, it actually pulls you in and makes you empathize deeply with that character's perspective and makes you know really specific things about how that character's thinking and feeling. And so I thought all the acting was believable and good, but nothing super exciting.
I will say this though, if you get a bad performance from an actor, no matter how good the story is, it can really pull you out and say, okay, this sucks, I don't care, because the performance is so bad.
And that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to be harsh. I think everybody gave a good performance. But that's my point. When the acting is good and not great, it's almost invisible, which is a good thing, because it's not pulling you out of the story, you're just buying it, but that doesn't mean that you're noticing it, or that it's going above and beyond.
Exactly.
It's sort of like good cinematography you won't notice, but great cinematography will really put you into the universe. But cinematography that just passes the smell test is just that you don't notice it, and you don't think, oh God, this looks like a bad sitcom or something.
I will say that the guy who plays Han Solo, he did a good job. I know most people who were already anticipating to hate this movie before going in, watching it, had this mindset of, well, it's Harrison Ford, and he's the definitive Han Solo, you can't bring someone else in to replace him, why do we need this? And you know me, I'm not too embedded in this. I don't really care. But I will say that watching this guy's performance, he did a good job. He had that level of believability. Didn't take me out of the movie. I wasn't like seeing Harrison Ford's face. He wasn't trying to play an impression of Harrison Ford, which if he did, I think it really would have kind of had that. Oh, I don't know if you can do it. You know, like kind of like in Looper with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis.
Sorry.
Looper. There's Joseph Gordon-Levitt plays a younger version of Bruce
Okay,
Willis.
right. And you buy that they're both the same person, which is important to the movie.
You buy it, but then he tries to play Bruce Willis, and they put all these prosthetics on his face. So it's Joseph
and you think
Gordon-Levitt.
that's the wrong way, and they did it the right way.
They did it the right way here.
Where they're not trying to make them super prosthetics look exactly like them, but they do a good job of evoking.
Like they had his hairstyle. He had like when he's leaning, you know, he's got his lean and everything.
Posture.
And the smallest
way
detail.
someone talks.
Exactly. The smallest detail that I noticed is Harrison Ford has this cut on the bottom of his. It's right on his chin. I don't know how he got that. And in the movie, you look at the actor here who plays young Han Solo, and they put that scar right there, and I thought that was a little nice touch.
That is good. It's always good to get some attention to detail.
Yeah.
So, right, we were talking just a minute ago about how, right, good acting is oftentimes transparent. You don't notice it. Good cinematography, also transparent. You don't notice it. What did you think about the look? Visually,
The look of the movie.
yeah. What's your take on that?
The look of the movie, it was vibrant. I thought the cinematography, the scope of the movie was great. I could see everything that was happening. It just looked like a beautifully shot, well choreographed movie. Each sequence fell into place perfectly. I don't have much to say about it. I just liked the way it looked.
Yeah, I think it was again, a lot of things about this movie were well done, right? The cinematography was well done. I wasn't jazzed about it or anything.
It's
I
lavish
mostly
looking.
didn't notice about it. I mostly didn't notice it and was just like, okay, you know, this is a well done summer action rom. You know, it seemed comparable to quality and style of other space superhero-ish. I know it's not really a superhero movie.
It met the standards.
It's got some similar trappings, but yeah, the look was fine. Not a plus or a minus for me.
I agree with that. I felt that each actor in here was believable, like you said. It didn't take me out of the movie, so that's a plus. The movie's very lavish looking, stylish, which is also a plus. Doesn't look terrible by any means. Han shoots first, which is great. They correct that. They give him a perfect story arc, like you said. I like the attention to detail with the cut on the jaw. This is what Harrison Ford actually has in real life, so they put that in there. All the actors gave great performances, like I said. I just didn't care about the progression of the story all that much. It was really predictable, even though I felt like it tried not to be predictable.
Hello, Habibi.
It just...
That's the cat.
Habibi! Yeah, there was one action sequence that felt a little too Fast and Furious. There was one action sequence that felt a little too choppy, where I couldn't really tell what was going on. I would say the most beautiful visual I saw in the movie is when they were going through this, I don't know what you call it, some sort of vortex or something, and there's this huge Star Destroyer there. I thought that was visually impressive. The squid thing looked weird. Or the octopus, whatever that was. I will say this though, seeing Lando Calrissian's character in here and knowing that he's this guy who cheats, the card sequence at the beginning and the end were great. But when they did the twist with the reveal, I seriously thought it was going to be Lando.
Lando that double-crossed him?
Yeah, because
right, Lando sort of double-crosses him in the original trilogy too, right?
He does, yeah, he turns him over to Vader.
Exactly, yeah. I agree with you. I think that makes sense. That's not what I was thinking, but yeah.
I was expecting him to walk out because the whole time, you know, the same thing with Lando, he's looking out for himself. Him and Han are kind of alike. And so there's this whole thing that I was kind of, it felt a little off to me with Lando, where he is going to do the job. Like there's one scene where he says, when they give him a lower percentage of the cut of whatever they're trying to get.
Their criminal enterprise,
Yeah, and they give him 20. First they say, okay, we'll give you 25, and now we'll give you 20. And he says, I don't like it, or some other stuff, but he says, I'll still do it. And so I'm like, why is he still there? Why is he being so helpful to these people? They destroy the ship. When they land, he's like, oh yeah, I'm going to sit in my quarters and wait for my cut, and then he just flies away.
Interpretation, but yeah, that doesn't really pay off.
Yeah, it doesn't pay off. That's why I thought he would be the one that double crosses him.
I think it shows him as like more go with the flow, but
I guess. I don't know. That bothered me a little bit, but other than that, you know, it's a fine movie. It's predictable. It's fun for, I say, children. My mother always told me that, hey, it's not a horrible idea to have kids' movies that are just aimed towards children. I mean, I would say that this has some adult themes in it as well. But I would say that for a child, it would be very, you know, because the action scene is going way too long, it would be fun. And also for someone, it would be a fun starting off point for someone who doesn't know what Star Wars is, or Han, or Chewie, or any of these people. Because when you see these characters come together and how he gets the Falcon.
It's an origin story.
Yeah, it's an origin story. It is good. It is good, but just knowing that these people are already established is kind of like, why did they need to make this? So it's fun, it's generic, it's predictable, it's flashy, it's boring in some parts, it's fun in other parts. Would I watch it again? Probably not.
Very fair, very fair. Like I said, my favorite parts were sort of the Han story arc about what is his moral code that ends with him shooting first. And I like the story arc of him and Kira and how they don't get together in the end, right? You always just expect the romantic interest
off into the sunset
to get together, but in the fact, in the end, he's misjudged her. He thought she was a damsel in distress, when in actuality, she's fully capable of saving herself and more evil than he is, and she's the only one who sees him as the good guy that he really is. And while I found those things satisfying, there were a ton of moments in the movie that I thought were really close to being great, and then they just blew it with like bad writing or going a slightly cheaper route. I wish I had taken better notes during the movie, but the one example of this that was the best, it was in the very beginning where Han and Chewie have just joined Woody Harrelson and crew. And Han is like translating for Chewie, and right, he says something like, I'm not sure if he said tribe or family. And I thought, oh, it's like a really brilliant symbolic moment, right? Here you have a group of people being thrust together. You have the literal action of the movie is that there's a word where you're not sure because of the language or because of the linguistic specifics, whether or not he's saying tribe or family. And so, right, you have a lack of a distinction between a tribe and a family, a group of people who work together who aren't related, and a group of people who work together who are related. While at the same time what's going on is you're having a group of people who are coming together who aren't related to form some kind of powerful bond, highlighted by the bond between Chewie and Han, right? Ultimately, right, the subtle point being that there isn't a difference between tribe and family, or the line between tribe and family is going to be blurry in this movie and is in this scene based on this piece of dialogue where he's like, I don't know if he said tribe or family. But then somebody ruins it and is just like, is there a difference between tribe and family? And I'm like, do you really have to spell it out for us that bad? Like, you know.
In your face, obvious.
It's not like Walter White in Breaking Bad does his big monologue and says, I am not in danger, I am the danger. And then right after that, someone's like, you see, because right, Walt used to be, the small guy in the situation, and we all thought he was a guy falling on hard times. Now it turns out he's a sociopath and he's really the guy in control. Like, no, we get it. You don't need to spoon feed it. Anyway, I didn't think the writing was that good. I think it was really close to being above the fray and being a genuinely, good movie. But in the end, I think it ended up just average in all categories. Average acting, average story. Not bad.
Could have been worse.
Just whatever. Skip it, see it. Whatever floats your boat. It's my official rating.
My final grade for Solo: A Star Wars Story will be a solid C. I give it a C, and I give C's to movies that I think are 50-50, split down the middle, half and half. It's got a lot of good things in it. It's got a lot of bad things in it. It's not something I would see again. I would definitely recommend it to someone who hasn't seen a Star Wars movie ever. So work really well in the future, I think. But we didn't need this movie. Didn't need to be made. I don't care.
Gotta get that dollar bill.
Dollar bill, y'all. Wu-Tang Clan ain't nothing to fuck with.
Yeah, no, C. Definitely C. I agree. That's the same grade I gave it. It's okay. It's not barely passable. It's passable. It's a passing grade. But it's not good. It's not great. It's just a C.
Well, I think that's it for us. We saw Solo: A Star Wars Movie. I'm Don. This is my best friend Sam. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you next time. All right.
Alright, there we go. Wrap it up. Alright, we gotta clean up. Fuck out of here.